Good morning, class. We are going to continue with the probabilities, just like what we've been having. And what we had yesterday, we looked at the tossing a coin different times, like 3 times, and then we looked at the probability of us having all heads or all tails. Then we saw that if you can have the probability of a head, like that is a half, then multiply the number of times the coin has been tossed. Like if it has been tossed 3 times, then you have a half, a half, a half, 3 times the number of coins that tosses that the coins were. Then for today, we are going to look at a different way. If you're having, like what we were looking at was combined probabilities, like you can either have one thing being done number of times, or you have 2 things done at a go. All these things work with independent variables or independent events or independent probabilities, where the effect in one does not affect the other. So now we have just the other examples. Yesterday we looked at examples like a coin and then the dice, the cards and the dice, or a coin and cards, different things being done at the same time. Today we are looking at having one thing done multiple times. Like you can have flipping a coin more than once, or you can have tossing a dice more than once. Like we have 2 dice being tossed at the same time. Now the methods that we use to get the sample space, or the time, or the number of times for all the probabilities, possibilities, the given possibilities, we can either use a table or tree diagrams. These methods help us to ease the work that comes after when you're given the question. Like for example, if we can take an example 1, where we have a coin is flipped 3 times, what is the probability that only heads appear? Now, if they give you a question this simple, you can work it out in the other way that we were doing it yesterday. Like you can have, for a head to appear on one coin, it is simply a half, then you say a half, and since there are 3 times, you multiply it times a half, and then get your probability as 1/8. That simply works if you have something like this. Then if you come to number 2, you can as well have number of tails at all. If you want the probability where you have number of tails at no tails at all, like no, we don't want to get tails at all. But we know for a coin it has 2 sides. You can either have a tail or a head. If they are saying no tails at all, that means we are getting only heads. And the probability to get the head is just a half. Again, we do the same thing. A half and the number of times times. Then we get that. That is very simple, and it can work in that way. But if you come to such probabilities like part 3 and part 4, where they say you need to have 2 heads, then this is where the problems come in. It gets so hard for you to use this method. So here you need to either get the sample space using the table or the tree diagrams. And how we get the table or the tree diagrams is what we are going to look at below. I'm going to start with the tree diagrams. Tree diagrams is simply a method for us to get a sample space for a given thing. Here we are looking at a coin that has been tossed 1, 2, 3. It has been flipped 1, 2, 3 times, one coin. And on the first flip, it is possible that we either get head or tail. On the second flip, it is either possible that we get head or tail. So we can get on the first flip head, second flip head, and third flip head. And that gives us head, head, head. First flip head, head, tail. That gives us head, head, tail. If we do that for all the other times, the possibilities, these are all the possibilities that could happen. And they give us a sample space of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. To get this, we simply do this. That. It gives us that. That. It is like looking for the roots. That. It gives us that. It gives us that, this, and this. This simply means tail on the first flip, head on the second flip, tail on the third flip, and it gives us that. So once we realize that we have 8 as our number of possibilities, we come down and then do the last numbers. These ones are simple. For you to get only heads appear, it is only, you look here up, and then for you to only have only heads appear, here you're having tails, tail and head, tail and head, tail and head, tail and head. It is only this. That gives us only heads. So there is 1 out of the total possibilities, which is 8. you see it taking us back to what we got in number 1. So this is simply another way of doing things there. Then for us to get no tails, that means we are getting only heads. Again, it is going to be 1 out of the total possibilities, which is 8. Now when we come to 2 heads, this is where this tree diagram becomes very vital. You come and look at your sample space. They want 2 tails. Here we have 1 tail, 1 tail. Here we have 2, so we can call that one 1. 2 tails. Here we have 2, we can call that one 2. 2 tails. Here we have 2, we can call that one 3. So the number of possibilities now becomes 3 out of 8. How about if we want more than 2 tails? More than 2 tails gives us what? 3 tails. Here we have 3 tails. Do we have any 4 tails up? No. So more than 2 tails, we have only 1 possibility, and it is going to be 1 out of 8. So basically this helps us when we come to such questions like in part 3 and part 4. The same happens for the table. For the table, you just think through your head and then look at the chances, like what are you doing? You're flipping a coin 3 times. On the first time I can get head, second time head, third time head, right? Head, head, head. First time head, head, tail, head, head, tail. Like you just think through what is going to happen. And while you do that, you're going to get this table, which is having 8 possibilities like what we had. And after getting it, the rest of them become simple. Like if we are doing the same question, heads only, it is 1 over 8. Number of tails, 1 over 8. No tails, because if we don't have tails, this is where we have no tails. Again, it's the same thing. Then 2 heads, again we come to that, that, and that. So it is 3 out of 8. And then more than 2 tails, we only have that, 1 out of 8. So basically this helps us when it comes to part 2 and part 3. And that marks the end of today. You're going to have just one number to do, which you will be doing tomorrow. It is going to be due tomorrow. So it is for both of you, grade 8 and 7. The question is a coin is flipped 5 times. Then you find probability of getting more than 3 heads. That is 1. And then 2, which is the last one. P, getting less than 2 tails. That is all. That is all you need to do. Nice time. For both of you, grade 8 and grade 7. So you just do this.